All right, are we fixed? I think we're fixed. I'm pretty sure we're live now. I'm pretty sure problem is resolved. Sorry, guys. I was not aware that way downstairs my Ethernet cable moved out of my router just like the tiniest fraction of a bit, which is why I didn't have a stream. Because of that, I didn't set up DLive. I did have DLive set up, but I've reset everything. And, well, this is how it goes, right? All right,
Real
fixed?
time.
I think we're fixed. I'm pretty sure we're live now. I'm pretty sure. And Entropy raised its volume. So welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me if you are here. Let's see. I don't always know, and I can't always tell. So, but I am here. I am live currently. I'll wait for some of you all to jump in the stream. Check out the real-time link for myself real quick. Make sure everything looks good. Well, thanks for letting me know, Sam. I know Dollhawk was here, and someone else started to jump in, I thought, and then everything went to hell. So, all right. Well, it's just the way it works, guys. Hopefully, you all will realize that the last stream was no good. In fact, I'm going to delete that right now. Because there's no point in trying to run that or salvage that. All right. Well, hey, bud, thanks for coming back. I was explaining my, apparently downstairs in my router, my Ethernet cable came out, and the little clip on the back isn't there, so I'm going to have to get a new one so that doesn't happen again. I didn't realize I was streaming through Wi-Fi because everything was connected up here on this end. And all I had to do was look down at the icon for my computer. But this is why I let Tank press the buttons despite his terrible job at doing it. Oh, and that coffee is hot. Well, gooding, Val. Let's see here. Sorry, guys, just trying to move my stuff around so I can get ready. I did have everything set up, and then, stream didn't want to run. So, yes, I'm a boomer. That's right. I was born in the 80s in a rural area. Grew up in a smallish town and not a fan of technology, honestly. I mean, I appreciate it. I use my phone a lot to do a lot of research and whatever else, but I kind of miss a lot of the old ways for various reasons. All right. So, guys, thank you for coming today and showing up as usual. I'm not running DLive today because I just shut it down. I could try again, but whatever. I haven't had much viewership over there anyway, so today we'll just go DLive free. As a reminder for anyone who didn't join yesterday, I won't be here Thursday. My wife has an appointment at the birthing center, and it's a good bit of a drive away down in Chantilly. She also has a chiropractic appointment down in Leesburg, so we're going to be gone most of the day. I could try and stream later in the evening. Why? Just let that day be. That's why I've been streaming. Trying to keep it consistent, but letting you guys know when I'm not around, of course. I am on Entropy, though. That's not that hard to set up because it's running straight through YouTube. So if you wish to donate, you can do that there or the subscribe star. Otherwise, please just share me out. Hit the like button. If you're not, give me a sub. I gain about 1 or 2 every day, which isn't bad for a little channel like mine. And it's been a while since YouTube has stripped me of subs because they used to do this on the regular, like every day. I would gain 2 or 3, and then I would be down 2 or 3. Now, they say they do this to get rid of fake accounts or whatever else, but not really what it seems like to me from someone trying to operate a channel who's trying to grow. Hey, Shelly. Appreciate you showing up. Showed up at the right time after all the technical difficulties. So, anyways, guys, let's get into it. It is 10 after. And let's get into. Oh, and Holly's back. Let's get into some news. Because there was news here. Just yesterday, there was a armed citizen who used rifle to stop attempted mass shooting. So, one thing I will tell you about this, guys. This happens all the time. We have numbers on this of sorts that are estimated by the CDC that happened under the Obama administration. I care less about the details of the article. I want to show you some headlines, though, of how these things are usually framed. And just to remember when you see these things, how the media won't cover it. And how, of course, they cover the most absurd things when it comes to shootings, and it's always about white supremacy. Now, granted, most of what they call mass shootings are actually gang shootings, and they never account for those because you're not allowed to report on certain ethnic groups' criminal activity. But the reality is, guys, is that America is a really safe place. I'm going to show you the data on that. I'm sure most of you know this. But we're just going to go through it because it was here, and this will be completely buried by the legacy media. Also, as I was having those technical difficulties, I didn't know because I can hear my computer, the fan and all running. So obviously when it's processing more, it gets a little louder. So I closed out a bunch of tabs. I do have them bookmarked, but the tabs were related to this. And again, I'm not here to really cover this full story today, just to kind of, again, show a bigger overview of the narratives, which I'm sure you're aware of, versus the realities. For you, it was unable to connect and service. Yeah. For the other stream, that's yeah. I was explaining not up here on my computer, but downstairs where my router is. The Ethernet cable had come loose, and I was not aware. So here I took the title here, just cut and paste it. And when I originally looked this up, when I first saw this morning, I typed in something similar to the title, and all I got was a Google search, which is why I thought I'd bring it up. So with the exact title in a Google search via DuckDuckGo, via Opera, which I'm using a VPN, so it's not at my location, it says this. First story, armed citizen uses rifle to stop attempted mass shooting. But then the second one is from the Cincinnati.com, and it says armed citizen failed to stop mass shootings. That was from 2014. Washington Post opinion, 2015. Do citizens, not police officers, with guns ever stop? Dayton, El Paso. Good guys with guns can rarely stop mass shootings. This was 2019. I hope you all can see this well enough. Slate. Can armed citizens stop mass shootings? All of these are, of course, left-wing outlets trying to say that this does not happen, that this is not a regular occurrence, and they are completely unfactual. So here, from DuckDuckGo, we have armed citizen uses rifle to stop attempted mass shooting. Arkansas, self-defense, armed citizen uses rifle to stop mass shooting. Armed citizen stops attempt mass shooting. Interesting how this works, isn't it? Armed citizen uses rifle to stop attempted mass shooting. 2021. That was the article from yesterday. Texas church shooting was not the first time a good guy with a gun. That's from a few years ago. Armed citizen uses rifle, and etc., etc., etc. So you're going to get, of course, a better flow of information, more recent from DuckDuckGo, although they are not perfect either. Here, if I hit news, it just goes off topic. At least there's a reason article in there about why banning assault rifles is a bad idea, regardless of what you think of libertarians or law-libertarians and Reason Magazine. But more importantly, I want to come over here to this older article, Mother Jones, and I want to look at this because, boy, is it a doozy. Let's see. It doesn't become a mass shooting until 3 have been shot. The metric is wrong. Well, it says 3 to 4 people. It depends. But generally speaking, most drive-by shootings, most inner-city gangs are mass shootings. Multiple people are shot. So, But I would agree with you, Dollhawk, on how we're measuring this, why, what are the conditions, whatever else. But as far as the generic layman term, I mean, if you're a gangster and you shoot 3 or 4 or 5 people, it's a mass shooting. It's just not reported that way. And you don't ever see the reports of that outside of local news. I mean, we all know that. Like, if I want to know what's going on in Baltimore, I just go look at someone's Twitter who reports on this stuff in Baltimore, or I just look it up. Shooting in Baltimore. Google will tell you that one. They won't tell you the race most of the time, but considering the population is 60% black, you can pretty much guess. So, do armed civilians stop mass shooters? Actually, no. 5 case commonly cited as a rationale for arming Americans don't stand up to scrutiny. Okay. Well, here, first off, what am I going to say? Well, Mother Jones is a hack outlet. It's completely ideological. I mean, it's not like I'm not telling you my ideologies here, but I'm upfront with my bias. And, you know, I will actually change my opinion based on evidence. These folks, they're not authentic people. In any case, it goes down through here, the Sandy Hook and M4 assault rifle. She thinks she could stop, blah, 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 blah. Not one of the 62 mass shootings in the United States over the last 30 years has been stopped this way. Well, that's not necessarily true. More broadly, attempts by armed civilians to intervene in shooting rampages are rare. Maybe in shooting rampages, but that might be true because people don't want to intervene, especially the way law enforcement is in some states. For instance, in Maryland, where I grew up, you basically have a duty to retreat. Now, the sheriff's department in the county I grew up in, they aren't that strict about it. In fact, I know of cases where, like, there was a home invasion and there were 2 girls living together, and they were, I don't know if they were drug dealers or not, but the people that did the home invasion thought that they were, and they attacked them, and these girls actually had to fight them off, and finally, like, they stabbed them with a kitchen knife, and then finally shot the one guy dead, and the other one ran off. He was injured. They eventually caught him. The sheriff's department did nothing. But, you know, Washington County, Maryland's rather conservative. Most of Maryland is not. Of course, they arrested the criminals, mind you, but they did nothing to the people defending themselves. Try that in some other states. For instance, in New York, where someone had a firearm the other year in their home that was an antique handed down because it wasn't registered, and they shot a burglar. They, not the burglar, but the person who shot the intruder in their home was arrested and charged. That's the world we live in today, folks. It's no wonder why people don't intervene. Also, we're just spineless. We don't have any leadership, and we're spineless. Most people don't live around or near guns anymore, at least as far as folks in suburbia and the city. Now, it doesn't mean that there isn't gun culture in the city or suburbia, but, you know, as far as the urbanized areas, the people that own guns are the criminals, generally speaking. And citizens act like sheeps. And, of course, there's no better proof for any of this than what's going on with the COOF, right? Thalhak says, you can't stop a mass shooting if there hasn't been a mass shooting. So if you kill the shooter, right, exactly. So it says, those pesky facts haven't stopped the Arm America Move crowd for pressing and arguing with alleged examples of successful armed interventions. The problem is the few examples they keeping us in which they depict plain old folks acting heroically and with definitive results fall under scrutiny. Here are 5 commonly cited cases. Well, I don't really actually work or care to look at the full article and all the cases and dissect them. More or less just to show you the gaslighting that the media tries to throw at your way. We know that this happened under the Obama administration, that the CDC did a report, and during the report, they looked at the efficacy of self-defense of guns for the average citizen. So these are just general things. This is how they list their information. This is nothing new. Most of you probably know this. I have covered it before. You have intentionally self-inflicted, unintentionally interpersonal violence, and legal intervention, that is a police officer or something, undetermined intent. How common are firearms injuries? Firearm injuries are serious public health In 2019, there were 39,707 firearms-related deaths in the United States. That's about 109 people dying from a firearm-related injury each day. Yeah. And the majority of those are within inner city populations that are controlled by Democrats with immense amount of power, and they love the federal government and currently are asking to defund the police. Now you may say, but Bill, if we took all the guns away, they wouldn't be able to kill each other. To which I would say, I'm a little guy at 150 pounds and 5'6", and I guarantee you I can kill you in less than a minute with my bare hands. And I'm not joking about that. And most of you who aren't trained, now don't get me wrong, I usually do carry weapons, but I am pretty skilled in the dirty workings of lethality. I'll put it that way. And most people just have no clue, no idea. They don't even understand when they watch police doing things how not aggressive police are actually being. And I know it looks bad when, you got 5 police officers trying to hold somebody down. That's because sometimes it takes that many people or more to hold somebody down. But it's not kicking people in the head or, smacking them with very hard objects that could be potentially fatal. And they're not using knives or anything like that. Most of them don't have very good control techniques. They use very basic things and they're limited by the legality. So the point of me saying all this is that killing folks is not a matter of firearms. And firearms, of course, are lethal weapons, but they're primarily, in their usage, defensive weapons. At least handguns are. So here it says 6 out of every 10 were firearm suicide, and more than 3 out of every 10 were firearms. So of that near 40,000, about 10,000 or so are actually homicides. You think someone who's suicidal won't just go jump off a cliff or hang themselves or slit their wrist or whatever else eventually? More people suffer non-fatal firearms-related injuries than die. Yeah, it's because of the improvement of medical technologies and the fact that these happen mostly in cities where hospitals are nearby. That's the reality. Those are the reasons why people can survive these things much more highly these days than in the past. 7 out of every 10 medically treated firearms injuries are from firearm-related assault, and 2 out of every 10 are unintentional firearms injuries. Meaning people, have negligent discharges, which happens. Not saying it's responsible. I'm saying it happens. You get complacent. Things happen. That's why you need to be diligent. And then here we are, all 5 stages of life. Don't really care to read much about that group. And some groups have higher rates of firearms injuries related than others. So firearms apparently are 1,000% sexist because males account for 86% of all victims of firearm deaths and 87% of non-fatal firearms injuries. And I think that we need to change that discrepancy and get those numbers up on the women's side because obviously this is just unfair discrimination. It's completely sexist. More women need to be shot. Obviously, I'm being facetious, folks. But obviously, making the joke that is often made by feminists. They don't care when men die. They only care when men are, in some perceivable way, measured to be better than women. That's when a feminist cares. Here, men being worse than women, well, not a big deal. Rates of firearm violence also vary by age and ethnicity. Oh, really? You wouldn't say. You mean like between the ages of 15 and 35 is most of the crime and homicide in the United States? Wonder why that is. Oh, and 90% of these people are from fatherless homes? Wonder why that is. And among black, 15 to 34. That's what they say here. I didn't read ahead, guys. That's just something I know off the top of my head. And among Black, American, Indian, Alaskan Native, and Hispanic populations, it's higher. Firearm suicide rates are highest among adults 75 and older. Well, they're older, they live in pain. And honestly, a big reason why people kill themselves when they're older is because they never have family or kids or they act like jerks their entire life and no one loves them. In fact, I was looking at some old college sociology books I have that talk about a lot of this stuff. Been sitting back there. Maybe I'll bust out some things from them here in a while. You can see the propaganda in that. So here is the crux of the issue, though, right? According to Mother Jones, we don't stop mass shooters, or any shooting for that matter. But according to this study, which was done, Priorities for Research to Reduce the Threat of Firearms-Related Violence under the Obama administration. In fact, I'll see if I get that brought up here. According to that study, the incidences of defensive gun use each year was somewhere between 60,000 to 2.5 million people. So of the 10 to 15,000 that commit homicides, 4 times as many, at minimum, 4 times as many homicides or crimes are stopped with firearms. That's the CDC's information. This is the government that we should trust, all-encompassing government. Oh, you're going to come in. There we go. The government that we are supposed to trust about everything, that would never lie to us and never, politicize anything. They are just such benevolent beings telling us, hey, guns actually prevent more crime or more deaths than they create. And that's important. It's very important. And let's see, when was that study published? In 2010. Oh, no. It says in 2010, more than 150,000 people were injured or killed in the United States as a result of firearm incident. And so the argument with all this is from 2013. Okay. The argument for all of this is always about firearms violence, not about violence. Well, folks, the reason why firearms violence is the issue is because they know that firearms are the great equalizer. It requires minimal training, and you can protect yourself. A little 100-pound woman can protect themselves from a 6'4", 250-pound man with a firearm quite easily without having to learn all the skills that I've acquired over the last 30 some odd years of my life. I could probably teach you to be quite effective with a firearm in a weekend. Really a few hours, but proficiently effective within a weekend. Of course, there is something to say about continued training as well. So let me check on chat real quick. I see there's a lot going on here. Holly says, if you here in Canada, if you shoot an intruder in your home with a legally owned and registered armament, you are charged zero castle doctrine. Right, which means you're not a free person, you're a slave. Right, this is what we talked about in Bastiat and the law, basic things, right? It says, Dollhawk says, also, most of the mass shootings are in gun-free zones. Right. And a lot of them are in churches because they know that church people generally aren't carrying firearms in church. They pick very specific areas, right? Interesting that I used to think that Canada wanted to be like the U.S., but the past years now, the U.S. government... Yeah, well, the U.S. has been looking... The left in the U.S. has been looking to be Europe for a long time, and that's what Canada is closer to, I would say, at least. So there's that. And obviously you know more about Canadian politics than I do, but, there are the more extreme provinces like Quebec, right? And then there are more conservative provinces. So, yeah. Dog says, repeal the 19th. All right. Yes, I'm offended. I want equality of death by firearm. You should be, Holly. You should be. It's almost like these shootings are happening in environments that select for particular violent males. Yes. I think the word rhymes with bangs. It's, well, actually, there's a great book I have somewhere. I've moved so much stuff around. I don't know where my stuff's at right now. There's a great book called Killing the Competition. You should go check out, talking about the psychological reasons. He says evolutionary reasons, but whatever verbiage you want to use, the psychological reasons why young males and females even in that ghetto culture might wish to live on the edge. Because when you believe that you're going to die at a young age, and this is the way your lifestyle is, you want to get it in as much as possible and make as much money as much as possible. So there it is. Joshua Ham says it's amazing that feminists never realize that they're equal. Then they shouldn't need laws and handouts to stop. Oh, I agree, man. I agree. Yeah. And you guys are just talking about that. And he said Texas churches are armed. Yeah, I know, but I have I have articles about that as well. They're just in bookmarks right now because I had to bring them down. So let's look at a few things on this. Like I said, I had a bunch of articles. We could go through them all. I don't need to spend all day showing you guys 150,000 left-wing articles on this. But let's look at, let's say, the World Population Review and murder rate by country in 2021. So this is recent. Not all data might be in, but here we are. Most common type of violent crime is murder. And whether it's self-inflicted, homicidal, or accidental, blah, 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 blah. And then we go down here and we see the countries with the lowest homicide rate. Now I'm going to bigly this here for you. So the United States is not in this. But if you do look at this, what you'll see is, for the most part, other than China, which I would say if they have a low murder rate, it's probably because the government does the majority of the murdering. But if you look here, you actually look at these nations and how they run their economies and whatever else. These are actually, for the most part, except for a few, some of the freest markets in the world. Luxembourg has one of the highest standard of living. It might have the highest standard of living in the world. Singapore and Japan are both quite wealthy. Hong Kong, although they're being invaded by the Chinese, the CCP, that is. Indonesia is interesting, but as they're coming up, I'm pretty sure they're pretty free market. Norway, of course, is, although they have some minor social welfare programs. I don't know enough about Oman. The UAE is quite free market, and they have a dual standard of laws, more or less, for Muslims and foreigners. And of course, China's a bunch of fascists, but I don't expect them to tell the truth about their murder rates either. The countries with the highest murder rates per 100,000 people are El Salvador, Honduras, and Venezuela. Yep. And you can see these numbers. And then we go all the way down to the bottom, and we have South Africa. Now, these nations aren't the United States, now are they? Here's the average. This chart's quite telling, because you'll hear all these things. The United States has a gun problem, blah, 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 blah. We don't have a murder problem. We don't have a gun problem. What we have is an inner city violence problem that is perpetuated by a lack of male leadership, the feminization of the cities via the Democrat Party, and the absolute control and enslavement of these people, and enslavement of their minds into thinking that they can have no better life. And most of them believe this. They think if they go live in some other area, they'll be hunted down by, white rednecks or something. I really do think that some of them believe this. I've had a lot of interaction with ghetto folk over the year, depending on where they were at, but or from, that is. But working in the jail and whatever else, you kind of get the thoughts and the attitudes of these people, and some of them, especially the older they get, they don't act that way. They know better. They learn. They figure it out. And they're like, yeah, I was just a dumb kid. So if you look, and we keep going down the line, right? Here's the UK. We go down, homicide rate, boom, boom, boom. The United States kind of perks up here a little bit. Seems kind of high, but again, we know what the problem is, but it's nothing like this. It's nothing like the rest of these nations. Wait, look at Venezuela, dude. It's off the charts. And then so here we can go to just Wikipedia. Now, I don't like these metrics that they use by the UNODC, but what's more important here than the kind of metric that they use so here's the list. Here's the rate, 6.2. This is per 100,000. And in the case that we can go down, down, down. We can't see the numbers here on the side. So again, I'm not really sure how these metrics play out because some of these things are out of date. I just it doesn't quite look right to me. But in any case, these are somehow supposed to be in order. And we can see all of these rates. I think the US is down here toward the bottom. There's the UK at 1.2. Oh, I must have skipped over it. But in any case, the US is, I know, labeled on here kind of high, but on other data, not so much. So, anyways, this is out of 200 and some odd countries. So you can go find that. You can see where we're listed. And again, you can decide if we have a gun problem or not. But more importantly, what I really wanted to show you in this is the other links, because you have a list of cities by murder rate. That's internationally, list of firearms related deaths, list of countries with intentional death rates, so on and so forth. Now, I'm just going to show you cities real quick. And this is a better metric, right? This is more forward than that UN data. But as we go through here, we can see the cities and where they're at. Tijuana has a very high homicide rate, apparently. And as we go down, Baltimore will show up here soon enough. There's Detroit. Maybe already past Baltimore. Oh no, Baltimore's in there. There it is, number 11. And number 9 is St. Louis. And that should be embarrassing that we're even on this list. But this is where homicide rates come from, folks. St. Louis has a 64.54% homicide rate. That is out of 100,000 people. Baltimore, 58. Where was Detroit? Detroit, 40. And again, not trying to really get into all the things. Number of cities by country represented in the table. Mexico, Brazil, Venezuela, South Africa, and then the United States has some. Okay. But again, this is just the cities, and this is where these murders happen at. It's just in these particular areas. Who runs Detroit? Well, since forever, it's been the Democrats. I don't know about St. Louis so much, but Baltimore, the same thing. So that should be alarming to you, right? These things are important. And as far as citizens go, defending themselves, I'm going to play this quick video from the Heritage Foundation.
Armed citizens are stopping criminals every day. Studies consistently show that Americans use their firearms in defense of themselves or others between 500,000 and 2 million times a year. Yet, very few receive national publicity, if they receive publicity at all. And these are average, everyday Americans. They didn't go looking for evil, but when evil found them, they were prepared to deal with it. Here are just a handful of the many times during the month of February in 2019 that law-abiding Americans demonstrated the importance of the Second Amendment. On February 2nd, a restaurant owner in Akron, Ohio, scared off a masked man who attempted to rob him with a knife. The man fled, and police believe he successfully robbed a different restaurant just hours later. On February 9th, when 3 armed men attempted to rob a Little Caesars Pizza in North Fort Myers, Florida, a patron inside pulled his own firearm to defend other customers. One suspect was shot, and the other 2 fled. On February 12th, a homeowner in Jackson County, Georgia, heard someone trying to break into her house through a window. She found a man standing outside and warned him, "Don't come into the house." Nevertheless, the man broke the glass window, so the armed homeowner shot him. On February 17th, an armed Good Samaritan in Daytona Beach, Florida, fired a shot to stop a knife-wielding man who had already stabbed someone from stabbing other people outside a convenience store. On February 20th, a 79-year-old Commerce, Georgia homeowner called 911 to report a burglary in progress after she heard someone breaking into her house. The burglar ignored her threats and came in through an upstairs window before police could arrive. The homeowner shot at the burglar, who was so scared that he hid in a closet until the police arrived. Without a robustly protected right to keep and bear arms, the people in these cases would have been left to the mercy of criminals who don't really care for the rights of others.
And that was just a few cases, just a very few amount of cases of the beginning of that year. And it goes to show you the gaslighting. Now, obviously, this is an older article, but this isn't anything new. This happens all the time. Some of you might be like me and watch police videos on a regular occasion, or watch CCTV footage. Granted, guys, I used to do these things professionally, so watching situations is intelligent because it educates you. And often that experience is better than having hands-on experience, because sometimes that hands-on experience, depending on what's going on and the chaos, is not very informative. So another thing that I found really interesting was, so this map, right? This is the change in the right to carry, the history of it in the United States. Let me size this correctly. So unrestricted, you had Vermont. It was the first state to do that. Then you had shall issue states. Then you have may issue states and no issue states. Now, you can see where the no issue states are, but we can also see there was some flip in politics at this point in time, and a bit of a flip back. So this is good that now we have mostly constitutional carry in many of the states, and shall issue in many of the states, but it's not enough. And there are some states like Maryland where it's really hard to get an issue, or it says no issue in New Jersey, but that's not really true. They do issue. It's just you usually have to be like law enforcement. All right. Open that in a new tab. Well, if I ever get a picture of it, or I can just zoom in over here, I guess. So this is constitutional carry. I live up here. Shall issue, may issue. Maryland says may issue. They don't issue, guys. I'm telling you right now, it's pretty hard. And then you got Jersey and New York, and what's interesting is the parts of New York that it's shall issue in practice and no issue in practice, and there are certain counties here. So again, just some thoughts on that. And then lastly, to sum all this up, I want to talk about the idea of federal policing and what's going on and what the big push is. And then we'll get into the vampire economy and some Basquiat and heaven on earth and all that good stuff that we've been doing. So you guys probably remember this from the other year, where an ATF agent was essentially tased and detained. Or no, it was early this year. This was February 2nd. Okay. I was looking for the date there. They were tased and detained by local police departments. And this is the stuff I'm talking about when I talk about working with your local police department, the sheriff's department, whatever it is, and getting the feds out. Technically, the feds don't necessarily have jurisdiction. Now, they'll claim jurisdiction in counties or states, but they need to work with the local law enforcement. They should be informing them that they are there. If you don't know the full story of all this, this ATF agent sued the police because they detained him. They ended up tasing him because he resisted arrest. And yes, we're going to watch the video. And yes, he did resist arrest. He said exactly all the things that everybody says when they get arrested, except for people who are 100% compliant. And it's not hard to be compliant, folks. I can tell you right now, if I was working for another agency, a federal agency, and I hadn't talked to the local department, the municipalities that I would be serving warrants that day, which is what I would do the first thing in the morning, because that would be the ethical and intelligent thing to do. If that were the case, I don't think that there would have been an issue. But if those guys didn't know, and I just said, all right. I said, look, I'll get down on my knees. I said, I work for the ATF. I'm a federal police officer. And then do everything they say and just say, here's my ID. You know, he would have been fine. But he didn't do that. And I'm going to play it for you. And after that, I'll read some of your chats here.
Yeah, 3359. Hey, turn around. Let me see your hands. Turn around. Let me see your hands. Okay, let me see your hands. I need to see some ID. Get on the ground. Get on the ground now. Get on the ground. Get on the ground now.
I'm a federal agent.
917-110-3.
I'm a federal agent.
Get on the ground.
Get on the ground. I'm a federal agent.
Why wouldn't you show me your ID when I got here? Don't move forward.
You didn't ask for it.
He is at 335.
Get on the ground. We'll figure it out.
On that 10-8.
Not getting on the ground.
Well, then stay where you're at.
I'll stay where I'm at.
Fine. Why do you got to make this harder than it is?
Listen, I'm not getting on.
I have no problem making this.
I just want to see if anybody from 3 Precinct can respond as well.
You're the one overreacting.
I'm not overreacting. We got a call that someone's impersonating a police officer out here who doesn't have ID.
No kidding, because she doesn't want to open it.
Okay, get on the ground so I can find out who you are.
It ain't happening.
Okay, fine. Fine.
It ain't happening.
You think I'm a police officer or something? What the heck's the matter with you? Who do you think you are? Get on the ground.
Listen to his hubris. It ain't happening. I'm a federal agent. I'm not getting on the ground for you. You get a guy pointing a gun at you. You're a nut job, man. By the way, this guy was in trouble before. If you look into it, the ATF agent, he has been in trouble before. I don't know the depth of it, but apparently at some point he stole wine, which is interesting. So, in any case, we're gonna keep playing this because there's more to it.
I'm not getting on it.
Chopper, thanks.
I'm not getting
91.7, I'm pulling up.
I got my ID.
Do not reach for your waist. Keep your hands up.
Why would I ever know that?
Keep your hands up.
Sir! Don't argue. Face down on the ground. Face down now! Face down!
You guys are making a big mistake.
Fine, we'll settle that second. Settle that. Face down now. All the way down. All the way. All the
You
way.
got my IDs right here, left pocket. Left.
And we're going to put your arm behind your back,
Wait
sir.
a second.
Do not resist.
I'm not resisting.
You're acting like a moron.
Wait a second. Stop. Wait a second. Wait a second. Don't do this. Wait a second. I got a medical condition. Get my license out of my pocket.
We're getting you secured.
Wait a second. Wait a second. He's about to do the George Floyd here in a second, guys.
Please, wait. No, whoa. Hold on. I'm hyperventilating. Please, sir. I'm
resisting.
I'm not.
Stop resisting.
Would you
now.
please get my ID out of my left pocket?
Stop
I'm begging
resisting.
you. My wife's pregnant. Please. It's right here.
resisting.
Please get it. Wait, sir, help me up. Just hold me up. Sir, I can't do it. Wait. Sir,
Stop resisting now.
please help me. Sir, please get my
Get your taser out.
my federal creds.
Get your taser out, Dylan.
No, don't do that, please. Sir,
Don't make me tase you.
You're going to get
I love that. No, don't do that, please. Don't tase me. Please don't tase me. Seriously. No, don't do that. Guys, I'll show you. If I can pull it up, I'll show you me being tased. It's not that bad. It sucks. It's not fun, but it's not that bad.
Put your right arm behind your back.
Okay.
Put your right arm behind
Help
your
me
back
up.
now. No.
Help me up.
No, you're going to stay on the ground and put your right arm behind your back.
let me breathe.
You can
I'm
breathe
gonna.
just fine.
I'm gonna. Ow, don't do that. Okay, here. My God.
Get him cuffed.
It is cuffed. Please stop.
Get him cuffed.
Please stop, sir. Wait a second. Sir, please help me up. Please.
Get this kid.
I'm a federal agent. My God, my gun, my
You have
pistol.
no idea what you are, acting the way you are.
And he has no jurisdiction there. I mean, again, technically, because this guy supposedly was going to find someone who was a restricted person potentially, and they had a shotgun. And so he was knocking on the door of this lady, and she explains at the end of the video here kind of what happened, but essentially he said, I'm going to stay here all day until you open that door. And that freaked her out, so she called the police. And rightfully so.
Sir!
Who the heck do you think you are acting like
Nobody! I wanted you to see my goddamn creds! The lady was freaking out, for Christ's sake!
Chopper work too.
Oh. Sir, please. Please. My God! Sir! Sir!
Oh, roll over. Sit up.
It's in my goddamn...
Sit
I
up.
showed her my
Sit up.
creds!
Let him sit up. Let him
I
sit up.
showed her my goddamn creds, for Christ's sake! Right there, left pocket. Left pocket, cargo...
Let me explain something to you guys. All officers will have credentials. You don't know what they look like, though. When I worked for the sheriff's department, I had an ID and a badge. My badge didn't mean much of anything. Never really does, although that badge number is connected to my name. But that ID proved who I was. If I talked to law enforcement and I said I was law enforcement, they would want to see that ID. Now, typically we were in uniform, whatever else. That helps too. If this ATF agent had taken the initiative to talk to the city police or the sheriff's department and say, hey, would you have, can I borrow a deputy of yours or an officer of yours for a minute while I go do this inspection? And maybe that's not how they do things. Maybe they just go to door and do these random searches. I don't know. What I do know is that federal policing is not constitutional and nothing that the founding fathers wanted. And again, this guy, I mean, he's trying to be polite while he's being a jerk.
Pocket, please take him out.
Stay. Don't try and
Guys,
sit
I
up.
get it. I fucking get it.
Then you should have
Why
behaved
would
the
you
way
act the way you did?
Yes,
the
I
hell
wanted
with
you
you?
to see my creds, for Christ's sake. My God, I'm here to fucking talk
No,
to you.
you're
Creds
the
could
one
have been a
that's
gun.
wrong.
Sir.
I literally watched a video just the other week of this girl who had a gun on her. And the police walk up and they're trying to figure out the situation, confused if she had a gun or not. And it was pretty obvious where she had a gun at because she had a little belly pouch that is meant for concealed carry. At least it looked like it to me. And they're going through all her other bag. And then finally, while they're doing that, she pulls it out, goes to shoot it at the cop. Cop grabbed her hand or something around, I think went off. And no one was hurt. Then she runs away. And of course, they shoot her down. But, like, you don't know what you're handling. And I'm not sitting here to like trying to defend the police either in their over aggressiveness sometimes, or the fact that they enforce unconstitutional laws. You know, this is also why I kind of don't care that this happened to the ATF agent, because he's enforcing unconstitutional laws. In any case, let's keep going.
You know, if you have interaction with the police, you obey commands.
Sir, I was trying to get
No,
this-
you didn't obey any command.
Sir, I'm with you guys, for Christ's sake. I'm a fucking federal agent.
Who's your supervisor? What's his name? What's your supervisor's name?
Hang on a second. The
Doesn't know who his supervisor is. That's sketchy.
SAC is currently John McPherson, who's on his way out to retire, who will soon be rolling.
I took the mag out.
My God. This is crazy.
You ought to be ashamed of yourself.
Stand up.
I'm
Stand
not
up.
trying to be a...
If you look into the story, the ATF agent is a 15-year veteran of the ATF, and these officers are 20-year veteran beat cops. $100,000. Those beat cops have far more experience than he does. He's probably never been in a firefight or anything like that. I'm not saying the ATF doesn't get involved in those things, because they do some things with gangs on occasion, or at least they used to. But, yeah.
Ashamed of myself.
Come out and see the back of the cruiser.
Say, let me see
Get in the car.
creds.
Get in the car.
Sir, please.
You gotta see the back of the cruiser.
Oh my God. Sir, I'm just trying to do my goddamn
Just get in the
job.
car. Why would you make us do this?
I didn't want you to. I wanted to. Wait.
No.
Hold on, he's
you
holding
do it,
him.
sir.
I'm locking the door.
Relax.
Hold him.
Hey, guys, please, just talk to me for one.
If you didn't want him to, then you would have completely complied. And you said, I'm a federal agent. I'll do what you say. I'll get down. Here's my ID. Call my supervisor. I'll do exactly what you say.
Second, please.
Get in the car.
No,
we'll
wait.
talk later.
Sir, wait.
You had your chance.
No, I was trying to give you my creds. You didn't let me show them
never
to you.
once tried.
I did.
Get in there. Have a seat.
Wait,
Now!
Have a seat.
Please, wait. I gotta breathe.
Okay,
Please,
you
sir,
can-
let
you
me
can
breathe.
sit down and breathe.
Let me breathe. I have a medical condition.
We're gonna get ART. Get your legs in. Get your legs in. We're closing this door.
Sir,
Get your legs in.
9170. We
I
have
need
a
air.
squad rolling. This guy's claiming he's
sir,
having
please,
breathing
call an
problems.
ambulance. I'm asking
I
for
just
an
did.
ambulance.
Got a
2
medic
seconds
coming.
ago.
Get in the car.
I don't need the back. The taser didn't bother.
You just said.
I'm telling you right now, I'm a patient guy. I mean, I never was a beat cop or anything, but I'm just saying I'm a patient guy. But if I was dealing with someone like this, I would have been at my limit and want to kick them in the chest right now to get them inside the car. I'm just saying. And that's the frustrating thing that you have to understand when you see police officers, how much restraint they actually do use all the time, especially, again, if they're well-versed in violence, which most aren't. Most aren't.
Said call an ambulance. We don't need a medic.
No, you don't want one.
All the way in the car. Get all the way in.
I can't breathe. Wait, sir.
All the way in. Push your seat all the way in.
No, sir, I'm begging you.
Get all the way in.
Wait, how did this happen? Okay.
Get in. For crying out loud. You're a cop. You had an ass.
No, wait, I can't. You're fucking my head up. The seatbelt's in place. Please.
Good point, Sam. Good point. They definitely go in and shoot people. That's a raid, though. That's not even what I meant. I meant like the undercover stuff they do, because they used to do a lot of undercover stuff with trying to infiltrate gangs and gun running and whatever else. I'm sure they probably do to some degree on the low key. I have a feeling though that they've been minimized a bit for border and homeland security.
What the fuck? Why would you act like this? I didn't act anything. Oh. Please, sir, if you are a police officer, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. I'm trying to give you my creds.
Guns up.
You sound like a baby,
I'm trying
too.
to give you my creds.
I was trying to give you my creds. All right, dude. Jeez. I mean, I've been upset before, right? Like, in a situation where I thought things were unjust. I generally believe the best thing to do in those situations is to remain silent and just keep going, right? Just do with what you got to deal with, and then come back and deal with it later.
Sir!
Secure in your vehicle. Secure the gun in your vehicle.
Please call my supervisor. Please call John McPherson.
We have our supervisor on the way. We'll let him handle it.
Hey, sir. I didn't mean to get you worked up, but you
When you get a gun pointed in your face by a cop, you give orders. You don't get to argue. You don't get to argue. You don't get to argue anymore.
I was trying to show you my cred.
You don't. You get to do that after you're secured.
Exactly. So there's a bit more to this video. He just whines. It's the cops getting together, after action, trying to break things down. Them telling their supervisor what's going on. They talk to the woman. You can go watch the rest of this. The title is ATF agent tased, arrested at gunpoint by Columbus police. Columbus is not exactly a bastion of peace either, folks. If you weren't aware, Columbus, Ohio has its own problems, but that's news to share. So go over there if you want. Watch the rest of it. There's not a lot of substance after that. Let me go through some chat. I also said that I would try to bring up my my tasing. So let me see if I can do that while I'm trying to read chat. See how good I am. So, all right. Nobody on Entropy right now. Some of you watching, but don't tase me, bro. Don't tase me. That's right. You've never been tased. It's not fun. Well, Josh, I didn't say it was fun. I said it's not bad. I said it's not that bad. And I absolutely have been tased. I have the video of it. It's worse than CS gas, but still not that bad. Oh, if you've never been tased, it's not fun. Yeah, right. It's not fun. Right. I misread that. That's what happens when you're dyslexic. It's worse than CS gas, but still not that bad. It's not fun, though. Yeah, right. It goes away and as soon as it's done, it's done. It's like a full body cramp, guys. And in my calves, I can tell you, were lit up, because the way we did it is through like a pre-made wire directly from the taser, where they hook it on the back of your shoulder and all the way down like on like your leg, so you get a full circuit through your entire body. Yes, I'd rather have spicy air than ride the lightning. Yeah, I don't know, man. I've been shocked too many times. Well, there you go. If you've been shocked a lot, maybe you don't like it. Again, it's definitely not fun. I'm not a fan of cops, but I still follow. Right, me too. Me too. When you've got 2 or more half-decent trained guys detaining you, or whatever in the case may be, it doesn't matter if they're literally the Gestapo. If you want to stay alive, right. And then Thane says Columbus sucks. Huh? Okay. For discovering America? Or you mean Ohio? Never mind. I get it now. Yeah. Columbus is kind of a ghetto town, for what I understand. It's got some issues. Yeah, Josh, I got you weren't shit on me, man. I just misread it. So you'll hear me say that. Let me find that video for you guys, and let's play some Heaven and Earth, and then we'll get into some Vampire Economy.
Much was unique about the Jewish state. But in choosing socialism as its strategy for development, Israel was part of a swelling tide. For the nations reaching for independence in the aftermath of World War II, state planning was held out as the quickest path to prosperity. 60 nations in the developing world would eventually adopt some form of socialism. Most were in Africa. The country that became known as Tanzania would provide the world with a leader whose vision of socialism fused the ideas of the West with the traditions of Africa. His name was Julius Nyerere. Nyerere's father was a tribal chief in northwestern Tanganyika, as the British territory was then known.
When the colonialists wanted somebody from the chief family to go to school, and he was virtually taken away from his goods and taken to school. That was the beginning of Julius.
By 1949, Nyerere had made it all the way to the University of Edinburgh in Scotland.
At Edinburgh, he started studying with socialist teachers who talked about community property, and Nyerere said, we've got community property, that's what we have in my tribe. And suddenly, it seemed as if the ways that he was used to, which he had always been told were very backward and sort of a source of shame, were actually corresponding very nicely to the most advanced social thought, that is the ultimate society that people in Europe were looking forward to.
When Nyerere returned to Tanganyika in 1952, colonial unrest had spread across the continent. To the north, Kenya was engulfed in the violent Mau Mau rebellion. Tanganyika was much quieter, but talk of independence was in the air. Nyerere took a job as a teacher, but he found his true calling in politics. He soon remade an old social club into his country's first political party. As the party attracted thousands of followers across the nation, Nyerere kept the title of his old profession, Mwalimu, Swahili for teacher. In 1961, Tanganyika finally won its independence from Britain. At midnight on December 9th, the Tanganyikan flag flew for the first time. The next year, the country swore in Julius Nyerere as its first president. He had been elected with more than 98% of the vote. Nyerere set out to slay the three dragons that plagued his country: ignorance, poverty, and disease. His weapon would be socialism. fused with the ancient tribal customs of Africa. The word he used to describe it was ujamaa, Swahili for familyhood.
What my father believed in socialism, the way I understand it, is that right after independence, most Tanzanians were uneducated and were not all that wealthy. So we had to move together.
Rosemary Nyerere was born in the same...
They had to be tribal. Pretty much. They had to revert to tribalism. I got this thing pulled up on my other browser. So I didn't want to play it and then have sound come up. But let's see if I can copy the link here and get it pulled up here. Well, we'll give that a minute. It'll be up eventually. In any case, they need to move up together and live a tribalistic style of life, because that's what socialism
same
is.
year, her father led the country to independence. She is now a member of parliament herself.
Mwalimu used to say that it's not new because that's how we live. You go to a typical Tanzanian village, a typical African village. We don't have these nuclear families, just the mother and the father and the children. We have lots of people living around. We help each other. So it's not really new.
Right. It's tribalism. And they stay poor. They remain poor.
By 1967, Tanganyika had merged with the island of Zanzibar to become Tanzania. Nyerere had been advocating his brand of African socialism for more than 4 years, but he had not imposed it on the country. He now decided to write it into law. Nyerere laid out his roadmap to socialism in a speech that became known as the Arusha Declaration.
This was a declaration, as it said, not just for Tanzania, but for all of Africa. And indeed, other Africans did look upon it that way because it was the most complete, most ambitious attempt to create a kind of communist manifesto for Africa.
Nyerere nationalized the banks and major industries, promising to give workers control of the means of production. And foreign investments would be turned away in the name of self-reliance. According to Nyerere, socialism would now pave the way to true independence.
The declaration, when it came out, spelled out so many things, a certain kind of utopia. There was this feeling that alongside economic development, you created a new human being. It was a whole new idea that talked about caring for the next fellow. That was an exciting period.
So caring for the next fellow, all that stuff, it's all right. The emotional appeals of altruism. The issue is no one actually gets richer, right? They just remain where they're at because they constantly have to share stuff because no one within their own abilities are going to be able to store anything. And so if you create something and it's common property, then what do you have to do? Well, you have to share it or you have to keep creating more, whatever it is. It's just not an efficient way to do things, which is why naturally I would say society's evolved away from socialism. It's the modern technologies and technocracies that are pushing it back upon us.
Nyerere encouraged Tanzanians to reorganize their communities into collectives he called ujamaa villages. These new villages would build socialism, and they would also provide access to schools, hospitals, and water. A Across the harbor from the capital city of Dar es Salaam, Gesalole became an Ujamaa village in 1971.
After Mwalimu Nyerere encouraged us to form Ujamaa villages, we were the first to respond and make our village an Ujamaa village.
Does that look like a bastion of health and wealth right there? Or does that look like a tribal primitive house in the middle of the jungle?
Vifaa baada kuanza ujamaa tukapata vifaa vya kusaidia kufanya.
After we began leading the Ujamaa way of life, we were able to get facilities for keeping poultry, fishing. See that boat over there? We didn't have it before. We got it with our own initiative, and we made progress.
Nyerere's vision of African socialism won the admiration of many in the West. As the Cold War intensified, many saw it as the best alternative to Soviet-style communism in the Third World. Support, both moral and financial, poured in.
World Bank presidents would fly out, heads of donor agencies would fly out. Students would come to spend a half a year or a year at the University of Dar es Salaam. The University of Dar es Salaam was a great place in the mid-1960s and early 70s. This was seen as a serious, well-reasoned attempt at socialism, and the feeling was, let's support this experiment.
Talk of socialism's potential in the Third World came amid disappointments in Europe.
All right, that's a good place to stop it, guys. So essentially, you can see there, it was a new nation. They've always lived tribally. It wasn't a change for them. This is often my argument for why it was so easy for the Slavic people to embrace this, because they didn't really have much more before then either. They didn't have a sense of independence. And I will bring to light the fact that de Tocqueville understood this and made the prediction that the U.S. way of life and the Russian way of life were going to come into conflict because one was collectivistic and one was individualistic. So, again, just some food for thought on that. And, you know, what happened, what we see there is within the Third World, we have nations that didn't come up, right? All the Third World nations essentially were going through bouts of socialism, communism, whatever, during the 20th century, and the UN and the world government was like, oh, this is great. And it wasn't until the 1970s that they started turning into a more capitalistic or mixed economic model, which is what has brought more than a third of the world or half the world, whatever the number is, since the 70s, to be out of poverty. But see, we spend all this time focusing on this tragic and horrible ideology that doesn't work. So, you know, I guess, you know, eventually we learned our lesson, but not really. I'm trying to get this thing up, guys, so it's visible, but I also, you know what? If I rip it, that's the way to do it. That is the way to do it. I can do that too. If you guys want to see me writhe in pain for a minute or two, that is. Actually, now that I remember, I think I have a program to, I should just be able to download this right off the bat, unless I took it off. Nope. I don't know. I'll show you tomorrow. I'm just not, I'm not, there's like comments and it's on my Instagram and I'm not trying to dox family members and whatever else. So it's one of those kind of deals, but I'll be able to rip it. I actually have a ripped copy somewhere. It's how it got on Instagram in the first place because it originally came from my phone. In any case, guys, let's do some vampire economy. And I don't really have any questions in the chat right now. See a couple of you on Entropy. If people want to donate, if they're new here, you can go over to Entropy and donate. There's a subscribe star. Normally I have a D Live up, but today was wonky when I started. Uh-oh. Here we go. All right, I don't have anywhere to be, guys, per se. Obviously, I'm going to have to start getting dinner ready in a little bit, although I made a ton of food this weekend, so we're still kind of trying to get through leftovers. But, yeah, that means I can stream a little bit longer, get through some of this. I'm going to try and get through this first chapter. You guys let me know in the chat if it's a little bit tedious at some point or another. I told you, there's just no way to read this whole book. I mean, I could come on and try and read a chapter every day. But I don't think that that's my job. I think you need to educate yourself. I just need to point you in the right direction sometimes. So here we have chapter 1. What happened to the businessman? The role of the individual businessman has been completely altered in the totalitarian state, and his position cannot be judged by American standards. Businessmen all over the world are dissatisfied and apprehensive. The depression has proved to not be only the most dramatic and widespread in modern times, but also the most lasting. Lasting because of government intervention, just like it lasted under Obama because of government intervention. Oh, Josh, anything particular tomorrow? I said something to you yesterday. I saw the message after I got kind of, I think everyone jumped off. But guys, if you didn't know, Joshua Ham will be over on the Justify the Memes tomorrow night. And we're just going to go through memes like we normally do, man. And I'm trying to cut them down to a lesser amount so we don't go more than an hour with memes, generally speaking, especially when we have guests. The main thing I want you to talk about is what your activism is, what your voice is, what you think people should be doing. And really, I wanted you on just to be able to, not everyone watches Sniper stream, right? And we need people to inspire other people. And you have a good voice for that. And that's all I was saying. And I think everyone else who was encouraging you to be on YouTube, that's all they were saying. You don't have time or you don't want to be on YouTube, fine. I'll offer you my platform here on YouTube or elsewhere, and you can say your piece there, and you keep doing what you do with the legislator, and you can tell everyone else how you do that, and anything that maybe you have affected or changed. Because again, like, we all have different roles, guys. It's often like stuff. I'll say it, pretty openly. I don't hide from it. Like Yiz has a very specific message. I consider Yiz a friend. I love Yiz. She has a very specific message about the anti-white narrative. I am not prioritizing that. I think I agree with her, but it's just not a priority for me. But that's her voice and her message. I look at and think of myself more as a guy who's got information, as an educator. I know there are other people that brought up this information in the past, whatever. We need to be educating ourselves and being pointed in the right direction for our children in the future. Josh might see himself more as he says he's building a chicken coop from reclaimed pallets. So that's cool, man. But yeah, Josh is more like, I go stand up in front of the legislature because they need to hear from articulate people. And I don't have any fear about it. So we all have different roles. Not everyone's going to be great at public speaking, but maybe you can support in some other way, whether it is just going down and talking to your school district or your local sheriff's department. Maybe it's running a charity in your local area. Maybe you're the kind of person that can reach out to one of us, some of us people that are talking about buying land or whatever, and you're already doing that. Maybe you have some way to help people get off the grid. I don't know, but we all have something that we can do. And we all have to do with what we can where we are at. So maybe some of us should be doing more too. Don't get me wrong. Not saying that you shouldn't get in the fight more. But, we all have our own place. And sometimes that is just being a good mother or father and teaching your children right as well. So, anyways, let's get back to this. Businessmen all over the world are dissatisfied and apprehensive. The Depression has proved to be not only the most dramatic and widespread in modern times, but also the most lasting. It can no longer be dismissed as a mere trough between waves of good times, as just an unpleasant but passing phase of the business cycle. It could be, but he's a commie, so he's not going to look at this as a free marketeer. And a commie would automatically assume that free markets are the cause of this. And that's not really true. It's the manipulation of the economic central planning, the Federal Reserve Bank, that causes this, and that is a communistic banking system. It's part of the 10 planks. Economists and businessmen alike disagree as to what it pretends and what measures should be taken to meet it, or whether indeed any governmental measures are helpful in the situation which faces us. While one school of thought demands increased activity from the state, another calls for a complete cessation of state economic activities and insists that private economy be permitted to work out a solution. With the world still at the crossroads, one may well conclude that there is something to be learned from the experiences of businessmen in the two countries which, without abolishing private property, have gone furthest in state interference to ensure national prosperity. Both Germany and Italy, the problem of the unemployment seemingly has been solved. The industries of both countries are running at full speed. Demand apparently outstrips supply. Labor unions have been abolished, and manufacturers have become authoritarian leaders of their employees. It is inevitable that American businessmen, harnessed by what they regard as unreasonable government interference, finding a large part of their profits siphoned off by taxes, direct and indirect, confronted with what is apparently a shrinking market, worried by increasing competition, should examine critically, objectively, and even sympathetically the situation in the totalitarian state. So, what he is saying is, the Americans, looking at this and what is going on in America, should observe what is going on in Nazi Germany, because they seem a bit similar. If it is inevitable that the American businessmen harassed by what they regard as unreasonable government interference, finding a large part of their profits siphoned off by taxes, direct and indirect, confronted with what is apparently a shrinking market, worried by increasing competition, should examine critically, objectively, and even sympathetically the situation in which the totalitarian state, what has been the result for the inevitable businessmen in the two countries governed by administration, put in power by business interest, and devoted to restoring economic prosperity. So, keyboard warrior, huh? Oh, okay. Well, you're kind of like defunding Wuhan too, honey. So there's that. In any case, what has the businessman gained in Germany? A great deal of, if we may credit the headlines in the, the whatever newspaper that's supposed to be, the Beobachter. Okay, because my German's really rusty. It's been years since I've used it. So, anyways, official newspaper of the Nazi Party. There we read, no unemployment, tremendous success of the 4-year plan workers willing to work harder, celebrating the new work community, rising sales, and dividends. Beneath these headlines, the reader will find many facts and figures designed to prove their truth. Figures relating to the scarcity of workers, the increase in production, and the rise in building activity, the rise in profits. These figures, upon analysis, prove to be largely correct so far as they go, but it is apparent that they tell merely part of the story. They do not reveal how Germany's new prosperity is distributed, whether it is shared by all industries or by a few, and whether it is confined to a comparatively few large units. The figures show that what happens to the profits, how large a proportion of them are absorbed by taxes, nor what the businessman is permitted to do with their portion is left to him. They give little hint at the extent to which the government intervenes in every business transaction. They do not reveal whether the individual businessman is permitted to raise his prices if his costs advance, nor whether he's allowed to shut down a department or even an entire factory, the operation of which is proving unprofitable. So what he's saying is that, oh yeah, the headlines talk about what's good, but it's not talking about all these things behind the scenes. Sound familiar? We cannot be satisfied merely with official statistics and reports, nor with fragmentary comments. We must penetrate the mystery arising out of contradictory facts and industrial boom, coupled with increasing bureaucratic interventions, a mounting accumulation of state debt, in order that the state may maintain its position as a consumer of the largest part of the nation's product. That is, the state maintain its position as the largest consumer. Now, I don't know what you guys know about the U.S. economy and the federal government and how much of that perpetuates the government, the spending and wealth that is around D.C. and other areas that have a large degree of federal buildings, but it's bigly, I'll put it that way. Like we all know Raytheon and whoever else, right? All the weapons manufacturers. But for sure, there are dozens of other groups you have never even heard of in your life. So that's the swamp, and that swamp is based on this system. This is why Roosevelt was quite a fan of the Hitler regime when it first came about, because they were like, "Oh man, we think what you're doing is great, taking charge of the business, letting those plebs have their own freedoms and free markets. How dare they? How dare they? Let's take those away so we can run them. The almighty, all-knowing God power of government." The answer to this problem cannot be a simple one. It will be found in the pages of this book. It must be understood, however, that the role of the individual businessman has been completely altered in the totalitarian state, and his position cannot be judged by American standards. The reader must try to put himself in the place of the German or Italian businessman in order to understand the latter's problems and his new position. As a general introduction to the subject and as a means of approaching it from a sympathetic point of view, we cannot do better than to read a letter written by a responsible German businessman during a visit to a neighboring country where he was free from censorship. The communication might be almost as appropriate if it came from an Italian industrialist, for there is little difference insofar as the individual is concerned between conditions and the two totalitarian countries. This man's letters express worries and fears unknown to businessmen in America, he writes. I got to clear my throat, guys, so. Sorry about that. All right. Dear Mr. XY, this letter will probably be a disappointment to you, but I must confess that I think, as most German businessmen do who today fear National Socialism as much as they did communism in 1932. That should be telling to you guys. It should tell you something. But there is a distinction. In 1932, the fear of communism was a phantom. Today, National Socialism is a terrible reality. This is like the threat of white supremacy here in the United States, right? And the reality of the woke communist, if we want to make a modern day comparison. Today, the National Socialism is a terrible reality. Business friends of mine are convinced that it will be the turn of the white Jews, which means us, Aryan businessmen, after the Jews have been expropriated, meaning the businessmen are going to be taken down. The race thing's just an excuse. Just when this will happen, and the extent to which Aryan businessmen will be the privileged depends on the internal struggle within the Nazi Party. When we consider that Hitler himself came not from the ranks of organized labor, but from the ruined middle class or the Fifth Estate, what guarantees have we that he will not make common cause with the bandits whom he put into uniforms? Now, isn't that funny how Hitler was a middle class guy as well? Yet, for some reason, this is a workers' movement, always imposed from the rich people on high. Let's see, Holly says, I see a lot of parallels to the bills on free speech being passed in California lately. Government control or ties to business, free speech, C16, C10, namely the ties to C10 to taxation and preservation. Oh, not Canada. Yes, Canada lately. I said California. Sorry, Holly. Canadian content and the ruse of protection and safety. No doubt you do, because the leftism is not really any different in application under different names. It's still basically the same things. They might say they have different end goals, but the reality is strong leader, strong government, strong control over the economy, protected classes and unprotected classes. This is how socialism, communism, fascism works, guys. And fascism, by Mussolini's or Giovanni Gentili's own words, was born directly out of socialism. They just reject the notion that everything is class struggle. Today, they reject the notion that everything is class struggle on the left. They think it's racial struggle. Yes, close enough. I just said, I saw CA and I think American. You know, you should understand that, eh? You should know what that's all about, Holly. All right, guys. Let's go up here. Just when will this happen? And the extent in which Aryan businessmen will be pillaged depends on the internal struggle within the Nazi Party. When we consider that Hitler himself came not from the ranks of organized labor, but from the ruined middle class or the Fifth Estate, what guarantee have we that he will not make common cause with the bandits whom he has put into uniforms? The difference between this and the Russian system is much less than you think, despite the fact that officially we are still independent businessmen. Now, again, this isn't Riemann himself. This is a letter from a businessman who is not in Germany at the moment, writing anonymously. You have no idea how far state control goes and how much power the Nazi representatives have over your work. The worst of it is that they are so ignorant. In this respect, they certainly differ from the former social democratic officials. These Nazi radicals think of nothing except distributing the wealth. Some businessmen have even started studying Marxist theory so they will have a better understanding of the present economic system. But no, the fascists were capitalists, guys. The fascists were they were all capitalists. No problem, a boot at A. Sorry. Yeah, I like it. I say a boot and A all the time as a joke, but Yeah, it's funny when I go. I haven't been in a long time, a couple years. I think 2014 was the last time. But when I go to Montreal, especially I go up there to train. My mentor is kind of like uh, as far as you would know, he would be American, and all of a sudden he doesn't say a lot of A's or anything like that or boots, but you go out and have a couple drinks with him, it'll just come out of nowhere. You'll say something to him, and he'll be like, "A," and it just totally throws you off because you're not used to it. Obviously, if you're Canadian, you're used to that. Here in the South, not so much. Some businessmen have even started studying Marxist theories so they will have a better understanding of the present economic system. How can we possibly manage a firm according to business principles if it is possible to make any predictions as to the prices at which goods are to be bought and sold? We're completely dependent on arbitrary government decisions concerning quantity, quality, and prices for foreign raw materials. Sorry, guys. I don't know why I have something in the back of my throat today. It might just be allergies that I don't realize are acting up because it is a beautiful day out. So, anyways, it's kind of making me pause here a little bit more than I'd like. There are so many different economic agreements with foreign countries, not to mention methods of payments, that no one can possibly understand them all. Nevertheless, government representatives are permanently at work in our offices examining cost of products, profits, tax bills, etc. That all sounds familiar again. There is no elasticity of prices. Sorely needed, though it may be, by businessmen, while state representatives are busily engaged in investigating and interfering, our agents and salesmen are handicapped because they never know whether or not a sale at a higher price will mean denunciation as a profiteer or saboteur following a prison sentence. And folks, if you think that didn't happen under communism, it absolutely did. We're talking about fascism, though. We're talking about Nazi Germany, not communism. This is how these things worked. This is what a wage and price control is. This is part of these systems. And humanity has tried to implement them over and over and over again. One is a method in which we believe that the economy will work itself out, people will find the lowest prices and everything else. And the other is just an authoritarian method of control. And that's what it comes down to. Those are the basic first principles of this. You cannot imagine how taxation has increased, yet everyone is afraid to complain about it. The new state loans are nothing but confiscation of private property because no one believes that the government will ever make repayment, nor ever pay interest after the first few years. Yeah, why would you? Nazi Germany or today, why would you? Or give you a fair price at that, right? Compare with these new state loans, the bonds issued during World War I, or during the World War, were gilt-edged investments, or gilt-edge. I don't know. I don't know the word. We businessmen still make sufficient profit, sometimes even large profits, but we never know how much we are going to be able to make, or be able to keep it. Workers also make a fair living, particularly where the hourly rate has not been changed. A working man who worked 6 hours a day before might now work 11 and 12 hours daily. Often his wife and children are also employed so that the family income has considerably increased. You will find it hard to understand that, although from a financial point of view, we ought not to complain, no one enjoys life anymore. Everywhere there is a growing undercurrent of bitterness. This feeling is worse now than it has ever been. Everyone has doubts about the system. Unless he is very young, very stupid, or is bound to it by the privileges he enjoys. Therefore, the real enthusiasm we experienced after the occupation of the Tsar is no more, and it cannot be revived. Even great historical events such as the Anschluss of Australia and Austria, that is, and the Sudetenland, that is southern land, did nothing to lift this bitter spirit. Everywhere I hear business and declare the Anschels with excuse me, guys, with bankrupt concerns make a bankrupt enterprise still more bankrupt. All of us, even convinced Nazis are hungry for news from abroad. Somehow British broadcasts seem better than the French, but prepares that is only our imagination, because we know England's attitude is decisive to us. An alliance with Italy is quite unimportant as compared to our relations with England. Most Germans feel that another war would be lost before it started if England, as well as America, were against us. It's good to know the pulse of the day, too, right? It says, if a war should start, we should probably have a revolution in Germany very soon. Didn't happen, did it? The French Revolution will seem like nothing in comparison. A tremendous reservoir of hatred exists, and it has no outlet at present. As in 1918, the workers will not start the revolution. It will begin with the army. Young officers are as unpopular as they were in the old Prussian army. Personally, well, that's because the Prussians were rather militant too, though. Like I told you, man, our whole school system is based on the Prussian system, the idea that we are going to be trained as good little factory workers and all of that. So, very authoritarian. Personally, I predicted that there will be a mass desertion. A good many people feel that the soldiers will start the revolution by massacring all the Nazis. In any case, our government is certainly not going to feel safe, and it is sure to introduce a reign of terror of draconian proportions. Hatred and bitterness will increase just that much more. There are terrible times coming. You can imagine how I feel when I think that I'm going to have to go through this terrible debacle. If only I had succeeded in smuggling out $10,000 or even $5,000, I would leave Germany with my family. The totalitarian state has fundamentally changed conditions of business life. In this book, an attempt has been made to describe the experiences and to explain the anxieties of businessmen in a totalitarian state. We shall accompany him in various party and state institutions. We shall try to merely to show how a private enterprise must be conducted in a state regimented economy, but also how the fascist businessman is affected as a human being. We shall deal with the complexity of trends resulting from the existence of private economy side by side with state economy. In conclusion, we shall endeavor to arrive at an understanding of the new social position of the private capitalist in a totalitarian state and to give it an evaluation of the historical role of the authoritarian bureaucracy. The old type of capitalist who adheres to the traditional concepts of property rights is doomed to fail under fascism. Okay, the Volkaiser Bobacher predicts that a new type of individual will arise in the economic field who will enjoy living dangerously and by his individual efficacy will create freedom of economic action for himself. We shall have to find out what this new type of capitalist is like. And that is because Nazism was seen as a third way. And so was FDR here in the United States, folks. Because it was understood at the time that we were implementing the same type of policies. This, of course, has been lost and buried to history. Not completely, but in any case, we will look over Chapter 2, the destruction of private property, tomorrow. So let's make sure chat's going good. No one on DLive, once again, if you wish, you can donate over there. Please, guys, remember, you can like, share, and subscribe too if you are new here, and I would appreciate it because I want to grow communities, grow this channel, have more reach, have more influence, and I want to prepare as many people out there for what is coming through the lens of history. I want you to understand human nature and human psychology. These aren't things that we can argue with. We can pretend like they don't exist. They 100% exist. We're going to get through the vampire economy to some degree, and then I think I'm going to go over and switch over to this probably next week. The Politics of Obedience and Discourse of Voluntary Servitude. It's a 500-year-old book, but it is informative. So, with that, guys, all we have left is Bastiat. Excuse me there. Somehow, no, I swear I put this at the correct place I left off, but apparently when I scrolled through, it changed that. Or not scroll through, but change tabs. Whatever I did, it reset itself, and I don't know why, because I had this set up. But so is, or such is the show. And then the show will go on. The socialists wish to play God. Okay. So here's a good place, because I thought I wrote down that it was a political application or something, but here we talked about laws and morals. I'm more than certain we talked about that yesterday, but let's see. Let's look at it. Yeah, and then the confusion of terms, socialism, like the ancient ideas from which it springs, confuses the distinction between government and society. As a result of this, every time we object to a thing done by the government, the socialists conclude that we object to it being done at all. We disapprove of state education, then the socialists say that we are opposed to any education. We object to state religion, then the socialists say that we want no religion at all. We object to state-enforced equality, then we say that we are against equality, and so on and so on. It is as if the socialists were to accuse us of not wanting persons to eat because we do not want the state to raise grain. Now, I know I read that yesterday. But it's a good thing to read again. It's probably my favorite quote from this entire pamphlet. So, influence of socialist writers. How did politicians ever come to believe that this was a weird idea, or this weird idea, that the law could be made to produce what it does not contain? The wealth, science, and religion that, in a positive sense, constitute prosperity. Is it due to the influence of our modern writers on public affairs? Present-day writers, especially those of the socialist school of thought, base their various theories upon one common hypothesis. They divide mankind into two parts, people in general, with the exception of the writer himself. From the first group, the writer, all alone, forms the second and most important group. Surely this is the weirdest and most conceited notion that ever entered a human brain. You sent me a coop pic? Josh? You text me it, bud? Okay. Oh, nice. I don't see any children in here, so I'll show the audience if I can get that on camera. This is Joshua Ham's chicken coop, guys. Looks pretty good, man. I actually really like pallets for various reasons, but aside from wood being, like gold right now, but I would like to do a herb garden with pallets because they're very compressed and kind of easy. But I have all these plants for my backyard that I may never get to, so. So here, let's break down this last little paragraph here. It says, present-day writers, especially those of the socialist school of thought, base their various theories upon one common hypothesis. They divide mankind into two parts, people and then themselves. Right? And he's saying this is the weirdest and most conceited notion because they understand how people act, but they're the ones who are going to figure everything out. That's what he gets into. He's, in fact, these writers on public affairs begin by supposing that people have within themselves no means of discernment, no motivation of action, right? So they have to tell them because they're too stupid. The writer assumes that people are inert matter, passive particles, motionless atoms, at best a kind of vegetation indifferent to its own manner of existence. Man, I like the snark here. I do. I enjoy this level of snark. I'm not a super snarky guy, so I appreciate this. They assume that people are susceptible to being shaped by the will and hand of another person, blank slate, right? Into infinite variety of forms, more or less symmetrical, artistic, and perfected. Moreover, not one of these writers on governmental affairs hesitates to imagine that he himself, under the title of organizer, discoverer, legislator, or founder, is this will and hand, this universal motivating force, this creative power whose sublime mission is to mold these scattered materials, persons, into a society. Go read the things that Mao, Stalin, Lenin, these folks talked about. Go read all of the Fabians, the social progressives of the day. Bertrand Russell, who praised fascism for its communistic or socialistic outlook. And they're eugenics, folks. I'm telling you, every single person on the left who's intelligent is a manipulative, self-centered, evil person. It's the dumb ones who I say we need to pity. And there's a lot of those too. There are a lot of those. But they might be able to be saved, maybe. Those in the Peterson study that have the low verbal IQ, that is, right? These socialist writers look upon people in the same manner that the gardeners view his tree. Just as a gardener capriciously shapes the trees into pyramids, parasols, cubes, vassals, fans, and other forms, just so does the socialist writer whimsically shapes human beings into groups, series, centers, subcenters, honeycombs, labor corps, and other variations. Also, the modern version of this would be intersectionality. And just as the gardeners needed axes, or needs axes, pruning hooks, saws, and shears to shape his trees, just so does the socialist writer need the force that he can find only in the law to shape human beings. But they're doing it for such just cause. They're doing it out of altruism, folks. If you only listen to them, your life would be better if you only gave them all of the power, because it's not like power does evil things to good men and women. It does. In fact, I read to you the first proverb the other week. I was thinking about coming back to these because that's what the proverbs are about. That's what they talk about. Don't be a strong man. Don't be an evil man. Don't do this. Don't do that. Stay away from this stuff. Stay away from this temptation. Keep yourself pure from dangerous women. There are life lessons to show you what God's will is for you. And God tells you that if you listen to these things, my wisdom, I'll bless you. Seems like a pretty good deal to me. And again, if you're not religious, hey, at least understand that they are metaphorically, psychologically true. Those positions, those stories in the Bible. Let's see. For this purpose, he devises tariffs, laws, tax laws, relief laws, and school laws. The socialists wish to play God. Man, see, I can't keep doing this, guys, because I'm not really reading it. I just say it, but I know. Now, I have read this before, but it's been a long time. Socialists look upon people as raw material to be formed into social combinations. This is so true that if by chance the socialists have any doubts about the success of their combinations, they will demand that a small portion of mankind be set aside to experiment upon. Sound familiar? Just saying. Let's see. Let's see what I have in my bookmarks, like the Falun Gong or we could go to just Jews, undesirables, Jews and gypsies in Nazi Germany, as well as those who were mentally handicapped. A lot of Christians, too. A lot of people don't know. A lot of Christians were locked up during that time period. We can debate on numbers. I'm not going to get into the numbers and what's true and what's not true about numbers, but either way, they did some pretty horrible things. The popular idea of trying all systems is, well, hold on, did I miss something here? No. Let's go back a sentence. This is so true that if by a chance the socialists have any doubts about the success of their combinations, they will demand that a small portion of mankind be set aside to experiment upon. The popular idea of trying all systems is well known, and one socialist leader has been known seriously to demand that the Constituent Assembly give him a small district with all its inhabitants to try his experiments upon. Meaning someone has gone to the parliament in France at the time and said, hey, give me this portion. I will work out socialism for you. What about all the people that it affects? In the same manner, an inventor makes a model before he constructs the full-size machine. The chemist wastes some chemicals, the farmer wastes some seed and land to try out an idea. But what a difference there is between the gardeners and his trees, between the inventors and his machines, between the chemist and his elements, between the farmer and his seeds. And in all sincerity, the socialist thinks that there is the same difference between him and mankind. It is no wonder that the writer of the 19th century look upon society as an artificial creation of the legislature's genius. This idea that the fruit of classical education has taken possession of all the intellectuals and famous writers of our country. To these intellectuals and writers, the relationship between persons and the legislature appears to be the same as the relationship between the clay and the potter, meaning the legislators mold things, and the clay and the potter is a reference to Scripture. Moreover, even where they have consented to recognize all principles of action in the heart of men and a principle of discernment in man's intellect, they have considered these gifts from God to be fatal gifts. They have thought that persons under the impulse of these gifts would fatally tend to ruin themselves. They assume that if the legislator left persons free to follow their own inclinations, they would arrive at atheism instead of religion, ignorance instead of knowledge, poverty instead of production and exchange. I'm going to read that one again. He says, moreover, even where they have consented to recognize a principle of action in the heart of man and a principle of discernment in man's intellect, they have considered these gifts from God to be fatal gifts. What he's saying is that, yeah, they recognize that men are intelligent and whatever else, but without someone on high going, nope, you have to do this, nope, you have to do that, nope, you have to do this, it's just going to all end bad. And it's actually the opposite of that. It's a lack of understanding spontaneous order. Adam Smith's invisible hand, if you would. So how much more of this do I have? All right. The socialists despise mankind. According to these writers, it is indeed fortunate that heaven has bestowed upon certain men, governors and legislatures, the exact opposite inclinations, not only for their own sake, but also for the sake of the rest of the world. While mankind tends toward evil, which I would agree with, that is the biblical position, the legislators yearn for good. No. And this is where the monarchists are wrong as well, because there's just no difference. Oligarchy's oligarchy, folks. Monarchs, basically one person's in charge, but it's an oligarchy. It's an elite group, an elite class of people. I would like to eliminate all of this as much as possible. Keep things local, keep our numbers local, and if things get so big, then I guess it's time to form a new community and a new government and whatever else. They can copy it right off of ours if they like ours, but they should probably handle their own business. And of course, there's problems with that as well, because then you have societies next to each other that could potentially not like each other for whatever reasons, competing for resources, blah, 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 blah. But look, guys, this is just the reality of life on Earth. It is not a pleasure cruise. I'd love to take all these socialists back to a socialist society from 100 some odd years ago, like we were watching earlier on Heaven on Earth. It'd be great, because then they'd have to work. No more slam poetry for you, buddy. According to these writers, it is indeed fortunate that heaven has bestowed upon certain men, governors and legislators, the exact opposite inclinations, not only for their own sake, but for the sake of the rest of the world. While mankind tends toward evil, the legislators yearn for good. While mankind advances toward darkness, the legislators aspire for enlightenment. While mankind is drawn toward vice, the legislators are attracted toward virtue. Since they have decided that this is the true state of affairs, they then demand the use of force in order to substitute their own inclinations for those of the human race. And folks, this is the whole of leftism. The whole. There are some that will admit that these things aren't true, that legislatures aren't good, benevolent folks, but most will not. And this is why they're all statists. This is why most of them worship the state. It is inherently part of their moral foundations, that care and fairness, but it's also a function of personality, function of IQ. It's a function of, big five things. I made a video about this a while back. We can look through it. There's more data I can bring about here in the future. But the reality is, most of your political inclinations are personality driven. And if we had to go on a scale of nature versus nurture, nature is going to win out over that nurture initially. Now, it's going to be the whole of society putting pressure on people from the beginning and brainwashing them that would make, I would say, nurture more effective. But you're born with a personality, folks. And your temperament is pretty set. It's pretty set. So understand these things. Open at random any book on philosophy, politics, and history, and you will probably see how deeply rooted in our country is this idea. The child of classical studies, the mother of socialism, and all of them, you will probably find this idea that mankind is merely inert matter, receiving life, organization, morality, and prosperity from the power of the state. And it goes, again, this goes back to Rousseauian ideas, Descartes, a few other people, but yeah. And even worse, it will be stated that mankind tends towards degeneration and is stopped from the downward course only by the mysterious hand of the legislature. Kind of like when Bill de Blasio said we need to tax poor people because they're stupid and they spend money on poor things. Josh said something here about Margaret Sanger was a eugenicist, attempts to depopulate undesirable populations and thus start Planned Parenthood-based abortion mills in urban districts. Right. And that is what all of the early socialists talked about. No, I've talked about this in the past in some videos. There's a video of mine. What's it called? It's something like, what is it? The Dark History of the Left or something like that. It's on my channel. You just scroll through the videos. You'll find it. It goes through these quotes of all these people who were very famous, influential writers during the early 20th century who were also eugenicists, believed in population control and lots of other ugly, nasty, despicable things because they did not believe in the sanctity of life. They're not religious folks. They don't believe that life is special. They believe that they have a right to help influence and mold mankind, and eventually their name will be read in the annuals and people will recognize them as great leaders and blah, 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 blah. That's the kind of stuff that these folks generally believe. Why do you think Joe Biden wanted to be president so bad? Sam says, just got an email from YouTube. They updated TOS again. I foresee a new wave of yeeting in the near future. Well, thanks, Sam. I'm just waiting to be yeeted for previous videos, honestly. Although Crowder is suing YouTube right now, so might be a good thing. Pretty sure he is. And I guess Texas didn't pass the law, but Florida did, about how that within their states you could sue. So that's somewhat good, right? I'm sure you'll see other states fall in line with that here eventually, if the legislators pick up. This is the stuff I'm talking about, though. The legislatures, I talked about this a few days ago. I covered this, that the legislatures are doing the right thing and the governors are doing the right thing, despite the federal government doing nothing. And that's why we need to focus locally. The federal government's gone, guys. It's a tool of the globalists. The UN runs it. China runs it. Name your NGO and they're involved. But it's not run by the people. So just keep that in mind. Let's see. And even worse, it will be stated that mankind tends toward degeneration and it has stopped from this downward course only by the mysterious hand of the legislatures. Conventionally, classical thought everywhere says that behind passive society there is a concealed power called law or legislator, or called by some other terminology that designates some unnamed person or persons of undistributed influence and authority, which moves, controls, benefits, and improves mankind. And this is like the Klaus Schwabs of the world. They think this way. A defense of compulsory labor. Let us first consider a quote from a French dude. From the court of Louis the XIV. One of the things most strongly impressed by whom upon the minds of the Egyptians was patriotism. No one was permitted to be useless to the state. The law assigned to each one of his works, which was handed down from father to son. No one was permitted to have two professions, nor could a person change from one job to another. But there was one task which was all forced to conform. The study of law and of wisdom, ignorance of religion and of the political regulations of the country was not excused under any circumstances. Moreover, each occupation was assigned, it says by whom, to a certain district. Among the good laws, one of the best was that everyone was trained, by whom, to obey them. As a result of this, Egypt was filled with wonderful inventions and nothing was neglected that could make life easy and quiet. Now, I want you to really understand this. If this is a true accounting of historical Egypt, this is highly, highly centralized, authoritarian, and socialistic. And I actually know that this is pretty true of Egypt because I've read a book called 40 Centuries of Wage and Price Control that outlines this stuff. And we'll probably read it on here eventually. Because the von Mises Institute, once again, provides a free PDF online. So, thus, according to Basut, persons derive nothing from themselves. Patriotism, prosperity, inventions, husbandry, science, all of these are given to the people by the operation of laws, the rulers. All that the people have to do is bow down to leadership. Now, the question then begs, what did people do before governments? They just died? Who will build the roads? Who will build those pesky roads? If government doesn't do it, they'll just never be done. So I think I'm going to start here, or stop here. Start, stop. They mean the same thing, right? A defense of paternal government. All right, I'm going to make sure I'm at the right place on heaven and earth too, so when I back out of this, so we got an hour and 29 minutes. Looks good to me. And I know we're on chapter 2. the vampire economy, because that's a little easier to keep track of now, isn't it? All right, guys. Well, yeah, let me close that out. Let me move some stuff around real quick. I actually want to see if I can download this video, because I did say I'd show it to you guys. Here we go. Sorry for the quiet time, guys. It just is how it goes, because I'm trying to get this. Well, I didn't download anything, man. Oh, well, I'll do it later off air. So, well, I got 4 viewers over on Entropy. Well, there we go. I know some people were over there watching. All right, guys. Well, I can try and tool around with this in real time, or I can just show it to you tomorrow, but without doxing people, because that's the only issue. In any case, sorry I didn't have DLive up. If some of you might prefer to watch over there. I know Val was over on DLive for a while, and then she kind of jumped ship over to Entropy. But no biggie. We'll figure it out another time. Again, minor thing. You know what? I might have found a website. You gonna do it? You gonna do it? All right. You can do it. Just takes too long while I'm streaming, I think. What? All right. Here we go. Anybody still watching wants to watch Bill get tased for 3 seconds? Here it comes.
Ready? Sure. All right.
That was it, guys. Pretty quick and not that bad. Not that bad at all. You can see as soon as I'm done there, I'm like, look at him, I kind of laugh, and I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm fine. Felt like being put in some bad positions I've been in and grappling before. Certain things that dislocate and compress and don't feel good that most jiu-jitsu guys never use. So there you go. Yes, you want to, Holly's like, yes, you want to see me get tased? Well, thanks, Holly. Anyways, all right, that's all I have, guys. It is 1:15, so I could have went longer today, but yeah, I'm going to jump off here, kind of take it easy for the rest of the night. It's been a hectic bunch of days since Friday. I've been on the move pretty much. Lots of stuff to do, but hey, such is life. I hope you all enjoyed the show today. I will be back tomorrow. I might have news. I might not. We might just get straight into it. I just thought that article, I could talk about all kinds of news stuff. I'm not really a news channel, although I do talk about news, right? But I thought that was interesting that I went to look up the article and all of those left-wing articles came up that completely contradict the evidence. And of course, I expect that. I expect that every freaking time, but it's not the point. The point is Google wouldn't even give me the article immediately. Now, again, I looked it up from my phone, so I didn't type in the whole headline, but I typed in the keywords, and it did not come up. So, it's the sadist in you. Yeah, well, I have a little bit of that. If there's no, like especially a grappling technique, because striking techniques sometimes, because, we have some unique striking abilities in the Russian martial arts, but grappling techniques especially, I often have to feel. Like, I have to feel the pressure, know what's right. There's one particularly where you put your forearm on the person's forearm, you crank up. It's called a blackjack. It's not fun. It's not fun at all. You actually can get the ulnar to bend a little bit, like a green sapling. You gotta be careful. Stuff will snap. But I do crazy stuff, martial arts, like being able to put your shin on someone's forearm and breaking it in half, that kind of stuff. It's old school. It goes back to like old school Japanese samurai jiu-jitsu, and catch wrestling. So it's not like, yeah, I participate in the sportive stuff, but it's not the same. It's not the same. You put a knife in the sportive stuff, everything changes real quick, I promise. In any case, guys, I've run my mouth long enough. This has been All Minus One. My name is Bill, and I wish you all well.